So this is my post-fight video for Deontay Wilder versus Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola retires on his stool. It was either at the end of round 8 or round 9. I can't remember off the top of my head. And it was a thoroughly one-sided, systematic breakdown in favour of Deontay Wilder here. Not a competitive fight. Not a competitive fight really for any one of the rounds. Certainly I can't see a single argument where one could rationally score a single round in Chris Arreola's favour. And I've got to be honest, I thought this was a good performance from Deontay Wilder. I'm sure some people would be critical of the fact that he appeared to carry Chris Arreola for a few rounds. I'm sure a lot of people thought Wilder would get Arreola out of there. There was also some suggestion during the fight that Wilder had hurt his right hand. He wasn't throwing his right hand as per normal. Now, I've started to record this video literally seconds after the fight is over, so it may be that that's covered in the post-fight interviews, and it may be that that becomes clear. I did see Dan Raphael of ESPN had tweeted out that Deontay Wilder's right arm had been damaged and injured due to a burn he had sustained, and that was very noticeable. There appeared to be a large wound, about the size of a tennis ball almost, on Deontay Wilder's right arm. So whether that was related to the fact he didn't appear to be throwing his right hand as much, whether that was related to the fact he seemed to be carrying Chris Arreola, I don't know. Potentially that will become clear in the post-fight interviews. But regardless of whether he carried him or not, a very dominant performance from Deontay Wilder, who won every minute of every round from my perspective. Look, we always knew Deontay Wilder was an athletic guy. We always knew he had power. We always knew he could move. Genuinely, I'm seeing real improvements in his game. He's not a complete fighter yet. I'll come on to that later. But genuinely, I'm seeing massive improvements. Deontay Wilder's jab has really improved. And I think at this point, it is one of the top jabs in heavyweight boxing. It's not the top jab in heavyweight boxing, but it's one of the top jabs. He throws it with such snap, such speed, and such power that it really, really damages and starts to break down opponents. I'd like to see him use it differently. The actual jab itself is there. I'd like to see him use it differently. I think he could double it up a bit more. I think he could use it as a starter to combinations a bit more. I mean, if you look at Vladimir Klitschko, who's had the dominant heavyweight jab for the past decade, Vladimir Klitschko's left jab is always linked to his knockout right cross. And I think Deontay Wilder was tending to pick with the jab as a single shot. And that jab is such a weapon. It's so snappy, it's so painful. That after he throws it, the opponent kind of goes into a bit of a shell. And, you know, that is really where he could be landing that big power punch off the back of it. But, you know, nevertheless, I think whilst he could be using his jab slightly differently, the jab in its current form is a real weapon, and it's something that I've noticed improve throughout his pro career. I also think his versatility in terms of his punch variety and punch range has improved massively since I've been watching Wilder. He's now got a real fully developed left hook. You know, when I was initially watching Deontay Wilder, he was just a sort of straight jab and a straight cross. This left hook that we saw against Molina, that we saw against Spilka, was really on display again tonight. He was leading with it. What he was doing, which was quite advanced to me, is he was throwing a left hook and then bringing the left hand back and throwing like a left uppercut off it. I also saw Deontay Wilder throwing some real smart short punches on the inside. And that's real nice. You know, when you've got a 6'7" heavyweight who's known for his outside body work, yeah, it's really, his outside body of work, I mean to say, it's really nice when you can see him throwing a neat, tight uppercut on the inside. And, you know, at least half a dozen occasions tonight, I saw him land a sweet uppercut on the inside that really rocked Chris Arreola. And I like that from Deontay Wilder. You know, it was a real calm, composed, dominant performance. He was the ring general for every minute of every round. He controlled the action, he controlled the direction, he controlled the pace. The fight was fought the way he wanted it to be fought for every minute of every round. A real ring general in there. And that, to be honest, is a result of him growing in confidence, growing in experience, and using that jab. You know, he really controlled things off it. And I thought this was one of his best performances. I know people will look at Deontay Wilder's previous fights and see him knocking people out much earlier. And I know Chris Arreola these days does not represent the elite of the heavyweight division. Obviously, Arreola came in at short notice. He looked very overweight. And, you know, is probably lacking in skill regardless. But I did think this was a real composed destruction from Deontay Wilder. And I like the way he broke his opponent down behind a jab, roughed him up and forced to stoppage. Forced to stoppage. It was a strong performance from Deontay Wilder in my perspective. Some of the historical issues that I've had with Deontay Wilder do remain. Clearly he is an elite heavyweight. Clearly he is going to be beating heavyweights up to and including top 10, top 5 standard. But the opponents he's beaten still are probably that lower end top 10 spectrum. Stavern's probably still the best opponent he's been in with. Depar is a decent fighter. Malik Scott is a decent fighter. Eric Molina and Arreola are semi-credible. But as he moves to the top 5 level, the Vladimir Klitschko, the Tyson Fury, the Luis Ortiz, those sort of names, still a few little things that I'd like him to tighten up on. Fundamentally, I've always had an issue with his stance. I think his stance is too wide, which means he gives up his height, and it means he can't make quick adjustments with his feet. His footwork's very good, by the way, but I think when he's going backwards, his stance is too wide, and he kind of shuffles backwards rather than being a bit more dynamic with his movement. And speaking of that, going back in a straight line with your hands low is a real problem. Arreola got in good positions 3 or 4 times here when he was able to back Deontay Wilder up, and he threw a jab, and Deontay Wilder went back like this with his hands up in the air. But Arreola didn't have the tactical foot speed to come in at an angle and throw an overhand punch or to throw a power punch off the back of it. Someone with quick feet, someone with more range than Arreola, someone with a bit more of an educated boxing brain could potentially find Wilder out. Still, he's backing up in a straight line, his chin's up in the air, and as he's going back, he's dodging punches and he's putting his hands out, to exacerbate how he's dodging them. It's a real risky strategy for me. He's very wild when he's finishing. Look back to the Audley Harrison fight. It was almost farcical how he was trying to finish that fight. And today, even though he was composed more generally, when he smells blood, when he sees the end of the fight, he does go crazy wild. And I think it was the end of the 4th round. He knocks Arreola down. Arreola gets back up. And you just see Wilder just swinging like a junk outside a pub. There's a time and a place to swing like that, and he probably judged it right tonight. The opponent didn't look like he could hurt him. The opponent was hurt at that stage and was so wild himself, it was probably safe to do so. But I'd like to see him being a bit more clinical in the way he's finishing. He lacked that for me tonight, and he probably could have stopped Chris Arreola in the 4th round if he'd have just picked his punches a bit smarter and not overcommitted and rushed in and thrown sort of wild windmill style punches to the extent which he did. So I don't want to be critical on Deontay Wilder tonight. As I say, from my perspective, one of his best performances, a systematic breakdown and a fight in which he has shown real improvements, specifically in the versatility of his punches and the jab. He's always had the athleticism, he's always had the power, the movement. We know he brought that to the table, but he really was controlling it in there. He was really being the general. He was really governing the pace of the fight, which I like to see. As he steps up to elite level, which he's yet to do in his career so far, is he still a bit wild? Is he still a bit defensively inept? Does he still back up in straight lines? Those have always been the concerns for me as he moves towards elite world level. but he's a very good fighter, and he's going to be a hard man to beat, and it's going to take the super elite of the division to really test him. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Whether you agree or disagree with what I've said, please comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed the video, support the channel by hitting the thumbs up button. It helps me spread this to a wider audience. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't watched before, if you just haven't subscribed before, please take the time, hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks very much for watching, guys.